Aloha, folks, and welcome to another edition of Five Questions. It is a conversation with newsmakers in our town and beyond, addressing issues of importance to us, and today, definitely no exception. State Representative George Fontaine is our guest today. And, George, thank you very much for being with us. Aloha to you, sir.
Thank you for inviting me.
Before we start, would you mind doing us a favor and maybe telling us just a little bit about yourself before we jump in?
Sure. Well, I'm a freshman legislator. I represent South Maui, which includes Kihei, Wailea, and McKenna. I'm a retired 25-year police veteran from the Maui Police Department. I retired as a police captain.
Mm-hmm.
Owned a business along the way, Maui Gateway, which was one of the top internet service providers in the state. And have a family with 2 teenage kids, and just totally love my job. I just love the job that I'm doing now. I love my past career, but I'm really enjoying the job that I'm doing now.
That's tremendous. Tremendous to hear. And let's get started. We'll start with question number one. Somewhat timely and also making the news, and we've covered extensively, of course. George, what was your reaction to the debt debate and the subsequent outcome over on Capitol Hill?
Well, I have mixed feelings about it. I'm glad we got something done. Unfortunately, it's not what I wanted, but I do believe that we couldn't let the country go into default. But I think that much more needs to be done in terms of reining in the cost of government. We need to reduce government spending on a federal and even on a state level. We need to reduce funding, and we need to take a hard look at all of these entitlements that we've built into our system, and I think that we're going to have to go back and revisit that. I'm hoping that the super committee that was set up is actually going to work, and we're actually going to see some cuts in spending. But until we see those cuts in spending, our bond rating is at risk, and the future of our country is, hangs in the balance. We really need to rein in our cost of government. It's just got completely out of control.
Maybe a fair or unfair question, but just conversationally speaking, if you were actually a voting member of Congress, would you have voted for this package?
That's a really, really tough question. I probably wouldn't have, because I don't think that the cuts that went into effect were enough. I've asked that question of myself, 100 times since it happened. Would I have done the same thing? And I lean towards no, but then I understand the idea of this whole issue of default. I just wish we weren't in that position where we were down to the 11th hour and the 11th minute making that decision. I probably would have leaned towards no.
Speaking with State Representative George Fontaine, Republican representing South Maui, and you're dialed in to Five Questions. Representative, Hawaii in question number 2 is, of course, facing its own budgetary challenges. Can you explain to us a little bit so we can understand why is it that our state is so broke? And recognizing these challenges, do you have some solutions for us?
Well, we have to rein in, the cost of government, and that basically comes down to labor cost and entitlement. And 70% of the budget goes towards salaries, so and other entitlements. So, I mean, we really missed the boat in this last session. It was the big elephant in the room. The minority caucus had come up with an alternative budget that didn't raise taxes. But the majority ended up putting forward a program that essentially did, by nickel and diming people with increased user fees and other things that actually increase the cost of living for most consumers or most taxpayers and residents of the state of Hawaii over the course of the next year or two. So until we actually start addressing those entitlements and things that we're going to do, not what we're paying for current retirees, but what we're paying, in the future for future retirees and things, we need to go back and really take a look at all those labor costs, look at ways to make government run more efficiently, and where we have duplications of services, look at eliminating those things, I actually think what the governor is doing in terms of the consolidation of the IT departments is a good thing. He recently spoke about that at a Maui Chamber of Commerce meeting about ways that he's trying to reduce the cost of government, and I'm glad to hear that. I'm glad to see that the governor is actually taking this whole concept very seriously and looking at ways to make government run more efficiently. And any effort towards that is ultimately going to help us at the bottom line of government.
I know that there are many ideas that are on the table in order to achieve new revenue streams, reduction of cost, as you've outlined. Question number 3 deals with a proposal that emerged in last session to facilitate a single standalone casino in Waikiki. What is your take on this proposal, and did you or would you support such an effort?
I would not support that effort. There's a lot of misinformation out there about how beneficial a casino would be. I'm totally against any type of legal gambling in our state for a number of reasons. I don't know how much detail you want me to go into answering that question.
Go right ahead.
Well, first of all, people don't come here to Hawaii to gamble. They come here for our environment and our culture. And I think that by having gambling as a part of that equation would completely change that. It would open the door to other kinds of crime, other kinds of social issues that are a result of having gambling. I think that it would change the type of visitor that we get to Hawaii. I think that once you open the door, it leads to other casinos opening and other types of gambling activities that would then be, presented to us to approve. Well, we had one and there's no problem. Well, what's the problem of adding 3 or 4 more? Mm-hmm. It directs tourist dollars to the casino rather than our local businesses. It's just a bad idea. We don't need that in our state. We have our gem is our environment, our beaches, our people, our culture. We don't need to add gambling to that mix to make people want to come here and spend dollars. So that's my take on it.
All righty, very nicely done. It's question number 3, which leads us to question number 4. We've been talking a lot about financial issues, of course, and it is a dominant theme. But from your standpoint, whether via representation of a neighbor island or just in analyzing our condition, what is the most serious issue facing us here in Hawaii that maybe we don't talk about as much as we should?
Well, I think if anybody has gone recently to the gas pumps and put gas in their car and they realize what the cost of, I fueled up yesterday, it was $4.34 a gallon, I believe, on Maui for the cost of fuel. We were seeing a huge rise in our cost of living because of our petroleum needs. We need to also never forget that we need to work on sustainability and reducing our cost of reducing our use of fossil fuels in the state and coming up with alternative energies, whether they be biofuels, it would be wind, solar. We talk about these things on the peripheral edge, but it's critical that we keep that conversation on the table and we continue the discussion about sustainability. We also need to keep in mind, too, that we're facing a huge deficit in our education system. I recently attended a conference on the Council on State Governments here in Honolulu this past weekend, and attended a class on education and was delivered some startling statistics on where Hawaii ranks in terms of our education and the downward trend of our younger people actually going on and going to college, the tremendous costs of remediation training for those students who are not learning what they're supposed to be learning in high school, and then the colleges having to deal with that. And the cost is millions and millions of dollars. So we've got to fix our education system. We can't forget about our sustainability issues that we need to address in our island state to keep our state going forward and thriving. If we don't have an educated base of young people that are going to come in and create new businesses and jobs and creativity and innovation and being able to work in high-tech positions here because we don't have a trained labor force, that's huge. People are going to end up going to the mainland, and we got this brain drain going on, and we've got to bring those jobs back to Hawaii. We've got to educate our youth and give them a fighting chance. really on a global employment scale. I mean, we've fallen behind as a country on education, and we need to keep pushing that forward.
Very well put. And our conversation concludes with question number 5 for State Representative George Fontaine, who joins us today. Rep, I had a question about South Maui and your representation there. Many, many times the politics in Hawaii become Honolulu-centric. I'd like for you to expand a little bit on your representation, your district, and you mentioned fuel prices. I feel for you and the residents of Maui, you do pay a disproportionately higher amount. Is there another issue or another topic that you can share with us that reveals your representation in South Maui?
I think one of the biggest things that happens, and I think the biggest scare we had being a neighbor island representative, was the idea of taking away the transit accommodation tax away from Maui and bringing it to Oahu and not giving us our fair share of that tax. And what most people don't realize, like in the county of Maui, most of our government services are supplanted by that tax. Mm-hmm. And if we had lost our transit accommodation tax in this last session, the county of Maui would have been forced to raise property taxes on the residents here tremendously. So that was one thing that I really went to bat for, to try to stop the state from taking our fair share. What we ended up with was a cap. And there was some other pieces of that legislation that were wrapped into that particular bill that I didn't particularly like doing away with the comp rooms and actually taxing those rooms. That actually had some unintended consequences. I heard from several condo owners who used to use free night giveaways as a part of a promotional package, and now we're having to be taxed on that, and now that makes it non-viable. But my district is a gambit of people, and I don't know if people really realize what South Maui is like. At one end, I have low-income families, a lot of immigrant families that are here, first generation, a lot of Filipino, Tongan Samoans. They work. Many of them work union jobs. Many of them work in the service industry. Some are self-employed at one end on North Kihei. And then on the south end, I have some of the most expensive homes in the state, if not the world. Some of them are behind gated communities. We have five-star hotels along the beach in Wailea. And then in between, we have the upper middle class and middle class homes and struggling working families that are all in between. So there's a wide brush of the type of people that I represent, and each have specific needs and concerns. The families in the middle, they want to see the Kihei High School built, whereas the hotels are more concerned about transit accommodation tax or taxes on luxury homes. Mm-hmm. So there's a wide variety of issues that I deal with when I go out and I meet with constituents in the community. It's very varied. I mean, in terms of the types of concerns that my constituents have. So.
Well, I'll tell you, it's just a wealth of information that we've been able to realize from you today, and we appreciate you so very much for joining us. We've been chatting with State Representative George Fontaine, and this edition of 5 Questions. Representative Fontaine, we wish you all the best. I know the session always top of mind, and at the rate where things are going, it's going to be here before we know it, I have a feeling. So we wish you all the best and best of luck. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. And I just want to let everyone know that I'm working very hard right now at creating some new bills and legislation and, really seeking ideas and input from the public. And you don't have to necessarily live in my district, but if you're interested in providing feedback or if you want to contact me with your ideas and such suggestions, I'm always willing to listen and to hear them. And people can contact me at repfontaine@capital.hawaii.gov, repfontaine@capital.hawaii.gov. Write me or call my office, 586-8525, and let me know what your concerns are or questions or anything that I can do to help you.
It's been a pleasure, and I certainly hope that we definitely can do this again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rick.
Okay, take care. Bye now.